Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing something really different. We're going to be reacting to Max0r's Bloodborne review doll waifu simulator. A few people told me to watch this and I'm really excited. I didn't want Bloodborne to end. Obviously when I did my Resident Evil timeline video, I had to do it off my PlayStation. I have figured out how to do it off my Mac so I can run IBS off IBS. I can run OBS. Oh my god, I can run OBS off the PC. Wow. So that's what we're gonna do. I actually can't see myself. My OBS is running in the background, so if I'm pulling any ugly faces, I'm really sorry about that. But let's just jump straight into it.
The video has spoilers. Bloodborne is a Lovecraftian horror RPG that no one understands by definition, where the player is free to attack hordes of human children at will and consume their innards. If that in-depth and engaging anti-baby gameplay appeals to you, keep listening because it gets worse. In this game, you play as John Bloodborne, a foreigner incapable of speech without the use of sign language, and stricken with Habsburg disease, comes to the ancient city of London seeking treatment for the sins of his cousins. In doing so, he will begin hallucinating talking dolls, spider people, and the great people. Journeying further, John Blood.
Okay, wait. Wow, right out of the gate, that was crazy. There's a lot going on. Really funny. John Bloodborne. Anti-baby gameplay. We love it. How funny.
Comes conscripted into the service of a gay elder god and the 60-year-old man he keeps as a pet, and is given the ultimate task of killing an invisible infant in order to cure his anemia. To accomplish said Herculean task, the player must journey through dark forests, terrifying nightmares, and the meth-ridden alleyways of a post-Brexit Britain, slaying monsters, exploring, and tricking women into being impregnated by gods so you can consume the child. This game is an excellent realization of a Metroidvania with something new around every corner, a great action RPG which pits you against insurmountable odds and extreme challenges, and has a gripping story and lore about discovering the eldritch truth. So if you can, play it yourself because I'm not going to hold back on the details. It's no secret that my reviews are entertainment first, so I don't suggest using me as genuine advice. However, most people can't play this game, ever, because you have to buy a $400 magical box sold by the wizard Sony in order to experience it, and even then you get to see it in an amazing 30 frames per second with no anti-aliasing. Port this game to PC, I beg of you. In fact, I can assume that a lot of people watching this video will basically never play the game, but keep watching because I'm hilarious and original. Do that, and I can give you the full, unfiltered, uncensored, unsubstantiated, and unsportsmanlike experience that is Bloodborne.
Okay, straight out of the gate, it gave you a lot of information. Max0r's obviously really funny. I've never watched any of their reviews before. They obviously know a lot about the game, which is really good. And I really like how it was like boom, 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 loads of information. Yeah, let's see what happens next.
Gameplay is what makes this game great, and the easiest way to describe it is simple but complicated. On a simple level, your baby brain is responsible for only two tasks, dodging and hitting. And dodging in this game renders you temporarily invincible. Sounds easy, right?
Yeah.
Well, because every single enemy is adjusted to keep pace with you.
So
Basic enemies are basically able to whoop your ass into fucking non-existence. Every encounter, therefore, is tense and engaging. When you kill someone, it's because you were faster and had more meth than they did. On a complicated level, you have a gun, and normally bullets hurt people, but in London, bullets are a suggestion, like the Geneva Convention. Here in England, it's all about the knife bins. Except when you shoot somebody mid-attack, you gain the mystical and arcane ability to plunge your fist through their ribcage like Mortal Kombat, and rip out their heart, which is considered rude and a slight annoyance. This extends to behind them if you charge an attack, which sometimes causes you to reach up a pig's asshole and rip out the prostate like fruit by the foot. Side note, the most optimal farming route for currency in this game is called Murgo's Pig Fisting Route. See, I changed the webpage. And in this route, you sneak up behind this guy and do him the dirty. Then entice the these two swinular bastards to be mauled to death by members of Organization 13. Repeat 50 times. On a complicateder level, every single weapon in the game has 2 different modes with 2 different movesets, and transforming between them gives you special attacks, in addition to running attacks, plunging attacks, R1, R2, swinging attacks. On a theoretical physicist level, your character memorizes squiggly lines and fridge art created by gods for passive bonuses that work regardless of weaponry. My favorites are more money, and more money they stack. Finally, on a meta-theoretical chiropractic level, every weapon is customizable with different gem slots that give differing effects for your attacks. And there are different types that can literally change all of the stats of the weapon, like making a fucking spear do more damage based off of intelligence. There's definitely more and a lot of strategy in how you level up your character, but I assume that you know how to level up in a fucking video game. But with all this combat prowess, you may be wondering, Max0r, who are these crusty abominations that you're fighting on screen? Well, to learn that much, we're going to have to delve into the lore. So buckle your britches, bitches, because this shit is wild. If I say something questionable, just accept it as fact. I can be trusted. 60 years ago, 20 rowdy college students took their education extremely seriously because they found Woman Cthulhu. She was just in a portable toilet downstairs. Also, because they were bored, they beat to death a god of the sea with some bats, but that's a story for later. It turns out the entire world is ruled and created by a race of elder gods beyond human comprehension called the Great Ones. Figuring this out, they got Cthulhu's blood and were like, we can make a religion out of this. Because it turns out the blood can heal people, which is really good due to all the knife crime. So everyone starts drinking it a little too much and they get the money to build 36 cathedrals, but it turns out eventually the blood turns you into a werewolf. So the church hires a guy named German to go fight the beast with an organization known as the Hunters, but there's too many beasts, so he gives up. Now the knife crime is increased even more, and German sort of goes insane and creates a life-size doll of one of his students who is an 8-foot-tall Amazonian. He also canonically has sex with it. The moon god, for some reason, kind of takes notice of this and is like, alright, listen, I'm building a suicide squad. I will bring your waifu to laifu if you serve me for all time as my slave. German reasonably thinks that this is a great deal and is imprisoned in a dream. This is where you come in. See, the moon god assassinates baby gods for fun, but needs a hitman to go into the real world to do it since he's confined to the 9th dimension. So in addition to fighting all manner of giant beasts and uncovering dark secrets, the true aim of this game is to commit infanticide. There's enough bullshit here to fill tax legislation, so comment your own poorly summarized Bloodborne lore below. And for the rest of us non-chills, we have ample time to explain more of what makes this game great.
Yeah, so basically, I don't know if everybody watched the end of my Bloodborne playthrough, but I knew there was a final boss. I knew Gehrman was not the final boss, and I knew there was another one. However, I didn't realise that it would be like the big squiggly boy moon present. I don't know what I was expecting, but he gave me such a big jump scare because I'd killed Gehrman and didn't expect the moon presence to be in there because I died. And as I ran up, the moon presence was there, and I literally was not impressed at all. But yeah, when you listen to this version of how the lore in Bloodborne is told, it sounds even more crazy than when you actually play it. I feel like that's what I really enjoy. I feel like what's it called, symbolic storytelling is the best way to tell a story sometimes, and I feel like FromSoft does that really well. They don't spoon feed you every single piece of information, which I like. This chapter's called Prepare to Die.
Yes, you have been japed. I am talking about bosses before I talk about the levels. In most video games, bosses cap off areas, but in Bloodborne, areas are preambles to a dick flattening, and nothing will challenge your skill in quite the same way. Except for the goddamn Witches of Hemwick, who were placed into the game for disability access. You can probably tell that Bloodborne is a hard game. We don't even know if a games journalist can beat it. But it's hard in a fair way that tests your skills and reaction time, except for Lawrence, but I'll get back to Lawrence later. What sets this game's bosses apart is that the challenge makes it feel like you're a really small dude jabbing a toothpick into a building-sized deer. So yeah, I would be impressed if he killed that. But not only that, unlike Dark Souls, every single boss reacts meaningfully to how you attack them. Large beasts can have their bones cracked and their tendons wound into a slinky. Bone boys can be knocked over and have their marrow shipped. And human enemies will wince and recoil when they see your height difference. As well, every boss punishes you for cowardice and actively discourages backpedaling with their forward momentum, causing every fight to be an elaborate dance with a thrilling back and forth. Unless you're fighting Rom, who is the really hungry caterpillar if he had a legion of arachnid slaves who threw their heads underground like ostriches. We don't talk about him. And while we're on the subject of...
Honestly, Rom, I actually am genuinely embarrassed by my Rom boss fight, because I summoned because I was honestly getting so angry because no matter what I did, she, whatever, the freaking spider, honestly just wouldn't die. And in the end, I did summon because I was getting really cross. And I had so many comments on that video where like people were like, you're rushing the game, how embarrassing that you've had to summon. And I was like, oh crap. People were like really mad that I'd summoned for Rom, but honestly, like, I just ran out of my patience with that fight. It is BS in my opinion. I think every single boss in Bloodborne is amazing. Like Maria, that dance, that back and forth. The Orphan of Cos was so testing, but like I really enjoyed it. You know, who else? Gehrman I found difficult. Like humanoid bosses I find quite tough. But Rom actually made me like want to throw my PS5 out the window. So yeah, I'm glad that Max0r's was like, yeah, what was Rom? But like, if I played Bloodborne again, which I do want to, I wouldn't summon for Rom, but I was fuming.
Bad bosses. This motherfucker, let me tell you something, the humanoid bosses in this game are paradoxically the most dangerous. But
right?
Mikolash is a psychological hazard that will hurt you personally. This boss literally feels like cut content because the fight centers around chasing him, and his direction depends
Honestly.
on RNG, making him an actual speedrun killer. When you corner him, he uses one attack, and then you chase him again, where he gains the power to insta-kill you. God forbid you're hit by him, because that's 10 minutes gone. Here's a tip. Save up 10 poison knives and steal from your family if you must. Then wait until he jumps down this hole, poison him repeatedly, and watch him spaz the fuck out until death. You will thank me. But as a result of everyone who isn't Miko shit, conquering a boss in this game is absolutely rewarding on a level that other games cannot match. It's only because the odds are stacked against you in ways that don't feel bullshit most of the time that conquering them is the main reason I play, and their fights are undoubtedly the best I've ever done in video games. But that isn't most of the time in the game. In fact, a lot of your time is spent exploring the areas, so let's get into that. Lesson 1 in area design. Where the fuck am I going? Exploration is the name of the game, except it's called Bloodborne. Only this time, you don't bring smallpox and kill 20 million people. We're looking at a solid 10 this time, because the main enemies in this game are British townspeople. It's how the developers made sure you didn't feel bad about killing them. The plague of beasts infecting London causes people's teeth to become beast-like, makes you aggressive at night, and slurs your speech.
Yeah, do you know what? I will give you that, Max0r. I will give you that. Yeah, that is England in a nutshell. I think I speak so fast and don't realise, and because I speak so fast I stumble over my words, so absolutely I agree with that.
So it's up to you to stop them, as a hunter should. If you don't look up where to go next in this game, good fucking luck. People get lost all the time, get used to it. This game doesn't do exploration like, oh look, there's loot in this hallway, my dopamine's gonna go crazy. That's baby shit. This is daddy's exploration, where you find a route back to a place you were in 10 hours ago. And I hope you weren't expecting a mini-map, or any map. Every single hallway is a rabbit hole of discovery, and your hand isn't held. Case in point, Cathedral Ward is a level, but feels like a hub area because it connects to fucking everything.
Yeah,
and where you start the game is in the middle of a loop-de-loop involving torturous experimentation. Just look at the fucking map of this game, everything overlaps. And yes, there is a level called Nightmare Lecture Hall, and no, it does not connect to the Altar of Despair, although you would think that. Fittingly, the Lecture Hall is the smallest area, and more fittingly, 90% of the combat is graduates throwing cum at you. The game also has 2 completely secret areas that you would not find without the internet. I
just thought it was like water. I just thought I want to know what it is now. What is it? Like acid? I thought it was acid or water.
Calculus. And what you get at the end? Upper Cathedral Ward is legitimately a horror area in a game loved for its combat, because it's filled with enemies who act out my greatest fears. Stealing currency permanently gives me fucking chills every time I talk about it. Castle Canehurst is proof that FromSoftware hates us all, since the best area in the entire game requires you to go to the Field of Corn in Ohio and trek down Waldo. But it's worth it to invade the house of that parasitic queen dwelling in her demented castle, so that she may feel the wrath of the proletariat. All we have to do is kill Prince Philip, who guards the way as an eternal lich. On top of this, there are numerous NPCs and NPC quest lines spread throughout the world, all with a series of interactions with each other depending on location and timing. For instance, you could direct nuns, prostitutes, and Prince Philip to a church run by a lonely black sludge, then perform enough blood transfusions to send the nun into a yandere rage. Or you could direct them to the nice woman who runs the clinic down the street, who only wants to help and assist others. Then take a strange path through the forest and into her clinic to discover that she has been experimenting on all of them in order to create the Blue Man Group.
Yeah,
and
that
if
is
you want,
weird,
you
isn't
can
it,
take
when
the
you think
umbilical
about
cord
it?
away from her schizophrenic ass and eat it. The sky's the limit in Bloodborne questlines. And you know what my favorite questline is? The one where you descend into literal hell, complete with eternal punishment, insanity, and femboy fishing. The scariest of them all. I'm, of course, talking about the DLC. The only DLC for this game. And if you play through Bloodborne, you have to play through the DLC. I'm not giving you a fucking choice. So
it's the best part of the game, in my opinion.
Best expansion ever made since Spore Galactic
Lady
Adventures.
Maria is one of my favourite
Come
bosses.
with me on this amazing journey
time.
to find the secrets of the Bloodborne.
And I like
the
Lawrence
old hunters.
and what's his name?
I want you to imagine hell. Now imagine hell written by H.P. Lovecraft. It would be filled with squids, immigrants, and air conditioning. This DLC has none of that except the squids.
Music.
For you see, those college kids from the lore section of the video were built fucking different. They experimented on an entire village and possibly beat up a god of the sea so fucking bad that her consciousness in the 9th dimension died. We spent an entire game killing an infant and these guys somehow killed the MILF god. But anyways, in the process of this, it cursed them and all of the hunters to be doomed to a hell upon death, where they will hunt in a bloodthirsty rage without rest for all eternity, indistinguishable from a political subreddit. Case in point, this is Ludwig. He's the first boss of the DLC and has a reputation for causing refunds. Not because he's bad, but because he's too good for you. The first phase is as difficult for me as realizing that Golden Corral is not actually a real corral. But like every restaurant except Golden Corral, the rewards at the end are delicious.
Okay, this is not a flex. I found Bloodborne, like, difficult. I feel like the gameplay obviously does click into place the more you play it, and I'm not saying that I'm good, and I'm definitely not like, you know, people can do like a no-hit run and like a level 1 run, and I could never do that. But I didn't find Ludwig that hard. I'm sure he only took me 5 or 6 attempts, and I loved his boss, and I loved phase 2 when he had his blade. He was one of my favourites.
Because his second phase is even harder. Now, I'm not going to lie, this DLC has 4 bosses and 3 of the hardest bosses I have ever fought in any video game ever. So, your ass will be clenched the entire time, and the fact that he's the 3rd hardest is fucking concerning. Some people tell me, Max0r, your videos have gotten me through tough times because they made me laugh. But like this boss, you are the one who is truly overcoming these challenges, and I believe in your ability to beat both of them. King. Boss Lightning Round. The DLC has many such cases of amazing bosses, including Lady Maria, who is the basis for German's extremely creepy 8-foot-tall doll fetish, but we'll get back to that. And Orphan of Cause, who was born from the literal dead body of a god. If you enjoy the sensation of being beaten to death with a sharpened placenta, this is the fight for you. And as with everything that FromSoftware makes, they threw in a boss that they didn't really finish and called it a day. I'm of course talking about Lawrence, which is a very mundane name for a fire monster locked in hell. Take my advice. Don't fight Lawrence, you only lose a part of yourself, since this boss fights you by dropping off his own legs and then violently vomiting and shitting lava everywhere. I've always wanted my game about dynamic dodging and elaborate fencing to be reduced to shitty area denial like
That's
Team
true,
Fortress
actually.
2.
You can't
to wrap
really
things
dodge
up,
Lawrence.
the music of this game is pretty good, but the DLC music is fucking insane. I don't know what it is about Japanese composers being able to make better symphonies than the continent that invented them, but just take a listen.
I agree, yeah.
Holy shit, I'm alive right now. Have you ever thought, as I do, that this game is just too good? That you would really rather be playing a shittier version of the game, such as the engagement of the Chalice dungeons? I, of course, jest. They're fine, probably, except for half of them, because Bloodborne has an optional system of infinite dungeon generation for all of those who wish to break free of the shackles of good level design. Let's talk about how, and more importantly, why.
Oh, Paul is in the Chalice dungeon,
First of all,
so I love
Bloodborne
that.
has a system of dungeons that everyone shares and dungeons that are random. For my footage, I played the shared dungeons so that you can be guaranteed the pain you witness on screen is mandatory. One of the biggest strengths of Bloodborne is the ability to have interesting and challenging enemy encounters gently rubbed with the blood-stained hands of Miyazaki. But I don't think I have to explain to you how randomizing almost every encounter in the game could be imbalanced. But fortunately, most enemies you encounter in the Chalice dungeons are new to spare British people your wrath. So you
Okay, I obviously never played the Chalice dungeons, but you guys should let me know if you ever want me to record any of them for YouTube, because it would be completely blind. I don't know anything about them in the slightest. So if you ever want to see that, like, let me know.
Instead fight SCP-96. But why are we here? It turns out that the entire city of London was built on a Celtic burial ground, an ancient civilization called the Tumerians, who discovered the healing powers of blood and then mysteriously disappeared. Wow, I wonder what happened. This is all cool in theory, but the reality is that most of the time you fight the same 4 enemies, and the first 3 dungeons can be replaced by Simon Says. My cat literally wouldn't notice. The Chalice dungeons are so forgotten that the developers use them to put joke enemies into the game. My favorite is the man who aggressively rolls at you stark naked wearing only his Nikes. The uniqueness also extends to the bosses, and they're actually pretty cool, like Tumerian Descendant, Watchdog, and the 3 overweight men. Do you remember that basic enemy from like 2 levels? He is the boss now. Rom, he is the boss again. The only thing stopping me from throwing myself into a wood chipper is the fact that Mikolash isn't back. And if you're going to have replays, you probably want to make sure that they're actually good. In fact, the bosses are so fucking imbalanced that the Watchdog fight is primarily comprised of instant kill attacks. I beat Sekiro backwards on a keyboard, and this shit is too fucking much. Now, normally that would be all, but the dungeons go deeper. What we have discussed so far is merely the surface, and there is a much darker syndicate lying just below. These places you must never venture, for they are the save edit dungeons, whereby through wizardry, the community are able to conjure up deep, dark chasms and share them with the rest of the world. Of these secrets, there are only 2 that I shall reveal to you, and the first is the Cum Dungeon. Yes, you heard that correctly and clearly. The Cum Dungeon is the name of the most optimal farming route ever conceived by the fucking cricket people who do this shit, whereby the player enters the chasm of place name and watches as a high-level boss yeets itself off a cliff. Murgo's pig fisting route can give you 10,000 echoes. This gives 83,000. And if you thought that sorcery was bad, it gets much worse. You can insert anything from the game files by save editing a Chalice dungeon. Anything. This includes cut and unfinished content from the game that the developers forgot to delete.
Oh my god,
this
what
doggo
was that?
who attacks you with invisible lightning. Overall, the Chalice dungeons are bad. They're not actually very fun to play, and yet I love them. Everyone loves them because they allow us to further explore a long-dead game with the help of a passionate community. Now, before we sign off, I know what you're thinking. Max0r, what about the multiplayer? That I would love to talk about with all the footage I have, but it's dead. If this game releases on PC, that is a shame. Better, then I will talk about the multiplayer extensively. And finally, this game and this video would not be complete if I didn't talk about the Hunter's Dream. After all the combat, the battles, and the difficulty of this game, it's nice to have a place to recharge, purchase items, upgrade.
Yeah, there was a couple times in Bloodborne where I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, when I got stuck on the Orphan of Kos, and like normally you can go off and you can farm and you can go off and do stuff, but because I felt like Kos was so late in the game, like I felt like I couldn't, and I wish I'd gone to the Chalice dungeons just to like blow off some steam. I would love to co-op the Chalice dungeons, and I feel like it's such a shame that the multiplayer's dead, because if they actually did like an updated version of this game, I feel like people would be all over that.
And watch as it violently burns to the ground. This is where you'll find German slowly wasting away as his soul remains captive for an eternity, and his doll waifu that he sold his existence to be with. She talks to you, levels you up, offers you advice, and German says you're allowed to have sex with her. When I fell down and felt defeated, she was there to pick me up. When I emoted at her randomly, she pretended to be impressed, and she was there, graciously standing in the background of this one shot that I took of myself. She is our waifu now, and the game is perfect and complete because she is in it. Now excuse me as I engage in the supplementary lore material. Should you get the game, yes, absolutely, I am biased. In fact, you should physically enter Sony's headquarters and demand that it be ported to PC. I will be right there with you. Tasers will not stop me. I would like to thank the corrupt hackers and politicians funneling money into this channel directly from the taxpayer. If you would like to contribute your funds accrued through extensive federal government corruption, you can head to my Patreon to learn more. I would also like to thank the kind denizens of the Mythbusters Smut Discord who sent me half the memes in this video. And as always, thank you for watching.
Okay, I feel like that was really fun. Definitely like their explanation of Bloodborne. A bit like here, there, everywhere, all over the place. I really like the editing style. Like, I feel like I was really glued to the screen. And it was nice to talk about Bloodborne again. I would love to play the Chalice dungeons. Let me know. Yeah, definitely picked up on some of the feelings that I had as well. Rom It ain't for me. I'm sorry. I'm sure there's people out there who love Rom. I did not. No. That boss was trash. And then Mikolash was annoying as hell. He was broken in my game. He was running backwards and forwards. Yeah, he was kind of annoying, so not the best. Maria, yeah, she is 8 feet tall. Why didn't I notice? She's so tall. But she was my fave. Loved her. Ludwig, absolutely loved him. I loved that he was like, how this is what London's like with knife crime and stuff. Super funny, loved it. Let me know if you want to see any more reaction videos. I will leave the link to Max0r's channel below. Also, I completely forgot that Bloodborne was a PS5 exclusive. Not PS5, PlayStation exclusive, Sony exclusive. And I wish they would port it to PC with like 60 FPS, but I don't know if they ever will. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. Something a bit different. It was fun to just like have a laugh and giggle. I feel like that's put me in such a good mood. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this. Max0r's details will be below.